Okay.
I'm Madison Gable,
I am Anthony Joplin.
And I'm Kenneth Rhodes.
and we chose Last Night by Sharon Olds. And through this entire poem that we chose, you're going to see heartbreak, agony, and pain that she felt in her youth. So the introduction of this poem is a tale of two lovers, and it is told through the speaking voice of Sharon Olds the day after a night of sex. And these two lovers, or strangers, are having this heated love. You could call it love, it's probably not love. And she's witnessing and feeling all this pain and torture through the whole entire poem. And she's reflecting back on this night the next day and saying, was it love? It didn't feel like love, it felt more like a butterfly coming out of a cocoon, but in the most harming way possible. And this was not a loving experience. So the theme of this poem is how traumatic events can really shape your life, and love may not always be present in situations where you think it should be. Sex only makes things more complicated, and these events that you're witnessing through the poem can mess up your mind. And so Sharon Olds, when she got older, well, first we'll start when she was young. She was abused by her father, and she had a very traumatic childhood. Her father was an alcoholic, and so was his grandfather. And it really messed her up as a child. There were stories of her being tied to a chair, and probably worse things, but she chose not to talk about these things later on as she got older. She just tried to block it out. And later on, whenever she left home, her and her sister became very sexually expressive. They tried to find love where it may not have been, and they would often get into these situations where the sex would be complicated and it would hurt them, and they would just regret every inch of this event through their whole life, but they would do it over and over and over again, not knowing that it was because of all the torture she went through when she was young. So traumatic events can change you, and this altered her life. As she got older and became a really renowned poet, she's a NYU professor now of dramatic writing, and it just shaped her, and she takes all of her mistakes and problems and pain, puts it into these poems, and it helps her feel better, but you can tell she was very damaged as a child.
Sharon Olds, she was born November the 19th of 1942. And according to her, she was raised Hellfire Calvinist. Like Madison said, her father was an alcoholic, her grandfather was an alcoholic, so a lot of times that brings a lot of abuse. She was often tied to a chair as discipline, and there were some other things that she didn't speak of. But her religious background, it was very censored. She was not able to go to the movies. They didn't even have a TV in their house. So she was very sheltered, per se. And very strict. Her dad was very, very strict on her. When her and her sister finally left home, and I quote her directly, all she wanted to do was fuck, point blank. That's exactly the way she put it. There was no love involved. She just wanted to get out and do that. All of Sharon Olds' poems are predominantly sexual, and we can presume that a lot of times what happens when someone is sexually abused, they either turn to sex or away from sex. So we can presume maybe she she was abused sexually as well. As far as her, it's never really found anything upon a relationship with her mom. It didn't say a whole lot. And for all of her poems, the major poems were written actually 10 years before they were published. So when she wrote last night, it was coming in at the end of the 80s, 86, which was coming at the end of the sexual revolution. So, you know, this here is basically telling a story of a night of just sex. It's not, there was nothing in, no connection. It was just pure animalistic.
All right, for the next one, I get the boring part with you guys. Physical structure. Through the rhyme, it's 28 lines. No repeating rhyme scheme at the end, so it's nothing rhymes like most occasional poems and all that, which shows it's more serious. There's also no rhythm that you can actually feel. It sounds like you're being sat down and talked to in, say, a counselor's office when you're sitting there and telling them your life story. I was abused as a child, this happened, and so now I rely on sex to make me feel better, even if it doesn't make me feel better in the end. And that makes you get that feeling about it. And the tone in it is super serious the entire time. You can't read it and laugh unless you're a high schooler. For the most part, the serious tone given by her lets you know that this is a poem that people can learn from. Because in America, let's see if I remember correctly, there's at least 40% of women will be put out into a sexual abusive background some way. And so this goes with a lot of people. And that makes it more of a serious thing. All right. Next slide is literary devices.
Through the whole poem, there's a lot of similes and metaphors. She compares, she compares two dragonflies. Their abdomens connected. She compares the chrysalis, which is a cocoon, as a moth or a butterfly breaks free. There's really no form. They were just jiggling and wiggling, and they were just coming together. And that's kind of what she was compared as a sex act. It was just kind of quick, fast, no form, hurry, get yours, get mine, and I'm done, and I'm out. You know, she talks about, she compared how a drunkard forgets, because if you're going on a binge night of drinking and you don't remember, she compared the sex act as like that. She didn't really want to remember it and how it happened. And then toward the end, she compared it, you know, she expresses the feelings of non-feelings. It was just a sexual act, just pure, unadulterated sex. I need this, I want this, and I'm done. Get out. So, you know, there's really no love, no feelings behind it. It's just the act.
All right, the conclusion that we brought up is it was very powerful, insightful, and just raw language. There was no holding back. It wasn't, it was similes, but it wasn't lightened up similes. So, the vivid and intrinsic language, there was no held back from what you heard of his description of Sharon Olds at her younger age. No held back at all. The imagery lets you see what was happening, even if you didn't want to. With using the dragonflies, you know how you walk out in the summer and noon and they're just all around mating and all that stuff, so lets you see what their act was. It was purely reproductive and necessity for the animalistic needs. And it is relevant for many people around our age. And that is what we have. That was our poem.
Thank you.